Hi, good morning. This is Dr. Vidya Patil. I am a gynecologist practicing in Kandivali in Arya Women's Healthcare Center. Now, the whole purpose of this particular talk is to update you about what you can anticipate during pregnancy and how we take care of you during the whole antenatal period. That is the whole period of the pregnancy. So basically we start with giving you an expected date of delivery, which we generally calculate with the date of last menstrual period. So we generally add 7 days to the date and 9 months to the month of the last menstrual period. So that approximately gives us around 40 weeks of pregnancy, and the delivery could actually happen anywhere after the 8.5 months of pregnancy, and even 10 to 15 days post the date. Okay, so it's a wide range of the time that you would be expecting to deliver, but we generally see that we take you to the term, that is we complete 37 weeks uneventfully and then deliver you. So the particular date is it changes only when the sonography date in the early scans, if suppose it does not correspond to your date and the difference is more than 15 days, then we consider the sonography date, especially in those patients who have the very irregular periods, in whom the sonography dates is considered. So the early sonographies and the anomaly scan, the scan which is done at around 18 weeks of pregnancy, 18 to 20 weeks of pregnancy, this is an accurate scan, and this actually predicts the date of your delivery. Now the date of delivery is very essential, because after the date there are certain complications which can happen, which we anticipate, and those are associated generally with excessive weight, increased weight of the baby, as well as drying of the amniotic fluid, which has its own implications, and hence the date becomes important. And most of the patients, around 40% of them, approximately earlier than the date they deliver, and a few deliver after that. So that is the significance of the date. So what we do during early pregnancy is that we start you, generally patients come to us prior to conceiving, and that's a better time to come, because the preconceptional period is very essential, and it's better to start the treatment even before the patient conceives. There are certain investigations we do. We see that your sugars are normal, we see that the thyroid function test is in control, then we do your electrophoresis if at all it has not been done. Of course, it is once in a lifetime test. We need to know your blood group, your husband's blood group. Then we also have, check your vitamin D level. Sometimes they are very low, so at times there is difficulty in conceiving even if the vitamin D levels are low. So we find out all these things, and then we try to rectify them even prior to you conceiving. The sugar is also very essential. That there are some hidden cases where they are not aware that their sugars are high, so glycosylated hemoglobin is what we do, so that we ensure that you are actually fit to carry the baby, and you do not land in eventualities during the pregnancy. Now this is important because at times there are anomalies which increase with the high sugar levels. So and this is something that is in our control. So when we control the sugar levels, then the chances of especially cardiac problems and certain other problems associated with spine development, abdominal wall development, other things are less. For the same reason, we put you on folic acid. Now the better form of folic acid is what I prefer. L-methylfolate is what I prefer, and we generally start this 2-3 months prior to you conceiving the baby. So many patients do come with a pregnancy. In such cases, we start as and when they come. So we start with L-methylfolate. So there are a lot of preparations. I prefer the 5 milligram L-methylfolate, which I start once the patient comes, and then we get certain investigations done. Suppose we find any issues with the initial investigations, we rectify those problems in the initial phase, so that at least the problems that we are in our control can be taken care of. Because it can happen that there are 1% of the patients might have some or the other anomaly in the baby, which will be eventually detected doing a sonography at the 11th week, and eventually at around 18 to 20 weeks of date, which we generally give. So I generally tend to give you a list of tests which give you a list of tests which are for the entire 9 months of pregnancy, including the dates of when we need to do, so that we share a responsibility, the doctor as well as the patient, so that we do not miss any critical dates. Because legally we are suppose as unfortunately it happens that there is an anomaly detected at around generally we detect this at around 18 to 20 weeks. Suppose the date goes ahead, then there is a lot of legal hassles in terminating the baby. So that is the reason why we should do all these tests in time. So once the first 3 months are over, we start you on iron, calcium, omega-3 fatty acids for the baby's brain development, and of course protein. Now most of the patients are vegetarian, and not all the non-vegetarian people have non-vegetarian food every day. So we have to give a good supplementation in addition to the regular diet that you're eating. So we generally tend to recommend you more of protein intake. And if you really wish to go natural way, then that's absolutely okay with the protein intake. You have to increase your protein intake. So the proteins generally are milk and milk products. Maybe you can have cottage cheese, or you may have more of sprouts. Dals are a good source of protein. So this is for the vegetarians, and of course the non-vegetarian people can have 1 egg every day. Hard-boiled egg is always preferred. Non-vegetarian, all the food is okay, except for too much of crabs, prawns, lobsters, because these tend to degenerate very quickly, and then you should not land up with food problem. The food poisoning shouldn't happen, and that is why we try to avoid such kind of food. So generally we tend to avoid, we advise that you do not eat from outside. Of course now this particular corona time is not a good time to eat outside anyways, but otherwise also it's better to avoid outside meals, because they have a lot of salt, there may be preservatives, and we cannot be sure that they are fresh. So it's better to eat at home, eat something that is cooked and eaten within 3 hours of cooking. It's always better that way. And the salt intake has to be very low, and generally WHO now recommends that every one of us should have only 4 to 5 grams of salt. That's very, very low. So the salt intake, and it's better to cook the food with the salt. But some of the people say that salt has to be added just prior to you finishing the cooking, but that's also fine, because iodine loss is there, and you need to cover the lid so that the iodine does not evaporate. So that's another good thing that you can do, but then you please see that you eat fresh. Now there are the same reasons like sugar. Too much of sugar is not good for you. Go natural. Have maybe a date or so, 1 or 2 dates is fine, but go the natural way. Do not consume too much of sugar, because it will add to your weight, and then we do not really recommend it. Suppose there are patients who are very lean, a little calorie excess is fine, but in patients who are on the heavier side, even if they put on for the basal metabolic index, suppose they are in the higher BMI, even if they do not put on too much of weight, is absolutely okay, and they may gain around 6-7 kgs, and if they are properly under the care of the gynecologist, then they need not worry. Even 7 to 8 kgs of weight with a good protein intake and a regular diet that they are taking will be sufficient for the growth of the baby, provided the baby is properly monitored. Now we generally tend at around 11 weeks of gestation, we ask you to come for a NT scan, that is a nuchal translucency scan. Now nuchal translucency is basically a small fluid level which is seen in the nape of the neck. That is behind the neck there is a little bit of fluid which should not be beyond a certain point. It is not recommended that it is more than 3 millimeters, because that can be associated with certain cardiac defects in the baby, or they may be it may be associated with trisomy 21 especially. So we tend to call you at around 11 weeks for that scan. We also see the nasal bone, then absent nasal bone. There are certain soft tissue markers which we pick for Down syndrome, and loss of nasal bone, absent nasal bone, or increased nuchal translucency are the soft tissue markers. We also at this stage can see small stomach, the spine, the abdominal wall, the scalp, the limbs, few things can be seen. The umbilical cord, whether there's a 3-vessel cord, which we can identify at this stage. So anything very gross around this stage can be diagnosed, and hence we can intervene, and the termination of the fetus can be done at this stage. The same time you come, we also collect the double marker test. Now that the American Society recommends that we should give an option to the patient, because just by doing a blood test we get to know if there is any major problem like trisomy 18, trisomy 21 even in the early investigation. So we take your blood, and along with the sonography report we send this for testing. Integral test is done, and some algorithms are there and the lab gives us a report as to whether the baby has high risk for Downs or not. So following this, we generally call you in the regular time every 15-20 days, but since this corona pandemic is going on, we tend to defer your follow-ups and call you at a critical point where you need to investigate yourself well. So otherwise, generally it's once in 15 days that you need to come for a checkup, and we evaluate you if there is any issue. So the following scan after this scan will be an 18-week scan, which we do and to find out the other abnormalities. Not all tiny small abnormalities can be found, but major defects like the spinal defects or the heart problems, or there is a brain cyst and the brain structures inside, and the limbs and the limb bones, and stomach, urinary tract, kidneys, everything else is evaluated very well around this time. Along with the same time, we can also go ahead and do a quadruple test, which again helps us find if there is any other thing that we are missing apart from the general anomalies. For example, the Downs, again trisomy 18 and neural tube defects is what we detect around this time. So once we are through this, then we generally the tests of the baby are over. We also do a glucose tolerance test. Now glucose tolerance test is because there are people, especially in India, with obesity being there, with vitamin D deficiency being rampant, we tend to have an altered glucose tolerance. That is, our body is not able to metabolize the sugars well, and hence we do the glucose tolerance test. Generally we do it with 75 grams, and we see how your body is tolerating the sugars. And then we again follow you up, and then if required we put you on a diet, or we send you to an endocrinologist if that is detected. So most of the tests are done around this time to ensure that you have a healthy baby inside. Now what remains is the growth of the baby, which is also very crucial, and we generally monitor you every 15-20 days in a regular case, and then we see that the growth of the baby is happening fine. At the same time, we also check your blood pressure. Now blood pressure is very crucial, because the blood pressure should not exceed 130/90. Even if the patient is having, suppose, a blood pressure of say 100, and the systolic, that is the upper limit, should not go beyond 30, and the lower limit should not go beyond 20 of the what the baseline has been. So it's very crucial that we examine you around this time and check your blood pressure, and accordingly advise you. Sometimes some patients do require certain medications for controlling the blood pressure. So the weight gain of the patient is also important. The total weight gain in a normal patient, we anticipate around 12 kgs, but it could also fluctuate individually because there is a lot of water retention at times. So generally on an average weight, it is around 12 kgs weight gain. So in the first 3 months you may have little weight loss. You don't have to worry about it. 2 to 3 kgs is absolutely okay. But then subsequently we want a weight gain of around half to 1 kg in 15 days time. So we ensure that you do not gain too much of weight, and then we evaluate you as to why you're gaining too much of weight, or why you're not gaining weight, and it should not impact the baby is what we ensure. So half to 1 kg is what we anticipate a weight gain during pregnancy in every follow-up. Now per week, okay, every 15 days you need to gain around half to 1 kg, not beyond that. So around 28 weeks, we find that the fetal height, the height of the the fundus, that is the whole uterus, it corresponds to the fundal height corresponds to the weeks in centimeters. So at times you may find us taking measurements like a tailor. So basically we measure your from the level of the hair, that is the pubic symphysis, to the fundus. The weeks corresponds to the measurement in centimeters, and this is a rough estimate because every time we don't do a sonography, that is why. So it corresponds up to 36 weeks, where the baby actually reaches its maximum peak because the entire abdomen is occupied by the fetus. And post that, after the 36 weeks, the baby starts coming down into the pelvis and you start feeling a little light. So this stage is called lightening, because the patient starts feeling a little light and the baby starts coming down into the pelvis. That is the pelvic girdle, and that is the bony area of the pelvis. So this change has to happen to ensure that the normal delivery takes place, because if the baby does not negotiate through the pelvis, it is not possible for the patient to deliver. So that is a critical point. So we do one sonography at around 28 weeks to ensure that to see the weight of the baby, and we may repeat the sonography after another 15 days to ensure that there is a growth in between two scans. So we find that there is normally the baby grows around 150 grams per week, a normal fetus, it grows. So we can estimate as to what the weight of the baby could be at the time of delivery. So we want that the baby gains around 3 kgs of weight at the time of delivery. So when we find that the sonography says 3 kg, it is not necessarily that is exactly 3 kg. It could be plus minus 400 grams. It actually varies. In some machines, the calculation may go plus minus 100 grams, but the variation could be as much as 400 grams variation could be there. Okay, that also depends on the mother's fat around the baby, and the fluid around the baby, and the mother's whether she's skinny or she's obese. So the sound waves actually hit all these tissues and go in. So the weight may actually slightly differ clinically, but generally it shows an accurate reading. So this is how we monitor you. And diet becomes very essential. I said I will try and hold one proper dietitian session for you as to what exactly you need to eat and how. But generally we tell you that you should eat every 2-3 hourly, so that your sugars don't drop down. Once you get up in the morning, brush your teeth, have a glass of milk, which is handy and wholesome. At around 8:30, have a proper breakfast, which is again wholesome, freshly cooked. By around 10 o'clock, we ask you to have a fruit. Now papaya, pineapple, sugarcane juice, for some reasons which is traditionally followed, otherwise there are no studies. Even if you eat something, nothing is going to happen to you. But you can have seasonal fruits. And by around 12:31, you should have a proper lunch, 2 rotis, sabzi. You can have vegetable, then you can have dahi, curds, which is freshly made, dal, rice, which Indian meal is complete and wholesome, and along with salads, which are thoroughly washed and only made at home. Please, when you go outside, if at all, we try and avoid. But then once if it is really you have to go out and eat, then please see that you eat cooked food, and don't eat chutneys and salads outside, however good the place is. By around 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, you can have another healthy snack. It may be some sprouts, or you can have peanuts or something like that, which is again we prefer that you eat proteins. By around 7 o'clock, you can have a bowl of soup, or you can have a fruit again. By 8:30, you should have your dinner, same as lunch. Lot of green vegetables during dinner time, and before you go off to bed, have a glass of milk and then go to bed, so that you do not get hungry in the middle of the night. During the first 3 months of pregnancy, generally you tend to have certain changes. Now these changes could be that you could urinate very frequently, or you could have certain things you never liked and you start liking those things. That is called pica. or certain things you always liked you don't like. So these things do happen during pregnancy, which is quite normal. You may also have a little stress because it's a new thing that your body is experiencing. You may have a little morning sickness, that is, you feel like vomiting and all that. So in order to avoid all this, you must have timely meals. And of course, we do give you some medicines which you should keep to the minimum, but if required in your day, you must take those tablets. And so about the diet, one should really take care. And the follow-ups have to be done properly. So once I hope the vaccine comes and all of you are safe to come for a follow-up, but then whenever we call you, please ensure that you come with complete safety gear, and we are also taking good care of ourselves so that we do not transmit any infection from one to the other. Your appointments are timed in such a way that we ensure that you are given a separate room and you're sitting there and you are not exposed, but you must also take good care of yourself. Now, as you cross around 37 weeks, that is 8.5 months of pregnancy, we are anticipating delivery at any time. So at around this time, we do sonography to see what the weight is, how the amniotic fluid is, how the placentation is placed. Of course, at placentation and all that is around 28 weeks, we ensure that the placenta is up and above. But then we also see, because this is a crucial time where we should anticipate certain things as to how the labor is going to go, how the patient, whether the baby is safe or not. At times there are cords around the neck which we should see. It's ultimately, it's the first or the last baby these days, so all the babies are precious. So your baby, you should know everything what's going on. And so this at times there are certain high risk factors. So we may do a color Doppler to check how the blood flow is in the brain, how it is in the umbilical cord, how it is in the uterine arteries, and ensure that your baby is safe inside you. So after the 37 weeks, we anticipate a delivery. So we call you every week around that time, so that we do not miss anything and that everything else is fine, because at times patients do land up in one or the other problems. The fluid starts drying up at times there is some fetal distress which is happening. So we need to pick these things. So we call you every week and monitor you. In certain special cases, like in patients who have diabetes, in case the baby is not growing well, in case there's blood pressure, we may do additional tests called non-stress test or NSTs, in which we monitor your baby's heart rate on a graphical paper and interpret it. So we may call you for those things. So do not be worried, be rest assured, we'll take good care of you. And whenever we call you for certain tests, those tests are important and you need to come. There are apprehensions as to what may happen during the labor, what we need to take care of. So what we suggest is you keep a bag in which you keep your toiletries, your file, all your reports should be filed properly. And whenever you have any issues, please come to the hospital. You need not panic, you need not make everyone alert, because there may be times that we may send you back home because it may not be labor, it may be a false labor alarm. So, or we may also admit you, we may monitor you, we may give you an enema, we may ensure that the pains increase, or if suppose you are in labor, then we admit you and then deliver you, of course. So in some patients, there may be some clinical medical problems and we may think of inducing you. Inducing in the sense we put in some medicines and try to deliver your baby vaginally. So if there is an issue and the baby gets stuck or has some problem, the baby's heart rate is going down or the baby is not coming down, or and the labor is not progressing, we may intervene. Okay, intervene with some medicines, and if suppose we have to take action, of course, then we may take you for a emergency cesarean section, but those decisions are as and when basis. So we'll be informing you everything as and when the time arises. So be rest assured about it. Now, so what happens during labor? The baby's head, I said, has to negotiate through the true pelvis. Now the pelvis is basically a girdle. Okay, it's a bony girdle, and the baby's head has to come down. It has to enter into the true pelvis that is the pelvic girdle, and then comes slowly down, and the mechanism of labor happens, and the baby delivers through the vaginal passage. So it's a long process. It may take, early labor may last for a long time, or it may happen that in the second pregnancy, third pregnancy, patients tend to progress a little early. So if it's a first pregnancy, it may take a little while, but we do have patience, and we ensure that we give a good trial. So what happens during a normal delivery is that the mouth of the uterus starts opening up. Okay, that's called as the cervix. The mouth of the uterus is called cervix, and it is generally closed, and then once it starts opening up slowly, what we do is we check your internal diameter. So like this is, if it's incorporating one finger, this is 1 finger, or it may be approximately 1 centimeter. So like that, the whole cervix starts opening, and the baby starts coming down. So suppose this is the baby's head and this is the cervix, so the baby is coming down, and the cervix starts opening up, and then once approximately the whole thing, my fingers go in and I see that completely open, that is 10 centimeters, which approximately corresponds to the baby's head, of 10 centimeters in the diameter, 9.5 centimeters in the minimum diameters, but are approximately roughly 10 centimeters is where the entire cervix opens up and the baby comes down. So the fetus basically starts coming down and the cervix starts opening around the same time. So right from the pelvic inlet till the outlet, it is approximately 10 centimeters down the baby has to move. So it has to move down 10 centimeters and open up 10 centimeters. And this is what we are going to be monitoring during your stay in the hospital. And approximately it opens up, like suppose you are in active labor. Active labor is a stage where there is no coming back. So now the contractions start, and it is contractions and not pain. So don't feel that the pain should be there. It is basically contractions which come and go. That is, the abdomen is getting tight and loose and tight and loose, and this is happening. It may take quite a while for you to actually enter into active labor. So once the active labor happens, then we are sure that you're going to deliver, and that is why the contractions basically they increase, say from 2 in 10 minutes to 3 to 4 in 10 minutes. That is the optimum amount of contractions that the lady gets, and they may last for less than a minute, like 45 seconds to 50 seconds max. So that is how it is. The contractions come and go, and it may get more intense in the last moment, that is in the last half an hour, while the whole thing is stretching out, the perineum is stretching out. So don't feel that labor is very, very difficult. If it had been so difficult, the population wouldn't have been this much. So if some neighbor or friend is telling you that it's very, very intolerable, don't be so scared to deliver vaginally. So we don't generally encourage people who do not want to deliver vaginally just for the fear of pain. Please no. So instead of that, you can go in for painless delivery. Now, what is painless delivery? Basically, it is called as epidural analgesia. Epidural is the space outside the dura mater. Now, there are 3 layers on the spinal cord. There is this pia mater, arachnoid mater, dura mater, which is covering the spinal cord. Outside that, the anesthetist administers a small amount of injection, especially Sensorcaine. They use that medicine to null the sensory fibers. So if it is given in a small dose, the pain is inhibited, and in a higher dose, then the motor fibers are, that is the muscles are inhibited. So a small dose is given so that you do not get pain. So once that is ensured that you do not get pain, then the contractions you can feel. But only thing is, at the time of delivery, at the time when the head is on the perineum is the outlet where the baby is just sitting there and you have to push. Now while you're pushing, that pain is there. So last dose, generally they give a little less dose, or maybe they avoid, but you have to be intelligent enough to push the baby out once we tell, because this is a slightly active process where it is just not in the control of the uterus, where you have to push the baby out. So there is an urge, like you have the urge of motions, the same sort of urge is there because of the stretch, you feel like pushing. So in case there is epidural is given and you do not have that urge, or you do not feel that much of urge, but yet you have to listen to us and ensure that you actively push the baby out. Start doing some pranayama and yoga is really good. Physiotherapy also is good. We will also ensure that you start doing some physiotherapy sessions. You can talk to our receptionist. She'll give you some numbers for physiotherapy classes, online classes as of now. Otherwise, we hold those classes in our hospital. So those exercises too have to be done. I generally give you a list of exercises regularly that you need to do. Please see that you do them regularly, so that the baby actually slides down into the pelvis in the right time, and the labor becomes a slightly easier process. In case of normal delivery, we last moment we give you a small injection, that is basically a anesthesia, local anesthesia, and we give a slight cut at the perineum. Now this is to ensure that when the baby stretches out, when the baby's head is coming out, which is the largest diameter which comes out, and once that comes, generally the baby comes very easily. Unless it's a very big baby, it generally comes out. So we give a small cut called episiotomy. Now we cut the perineal muscles so as to ensure that the cut is in the safer place. So because there is this urethra, that is the urinary passage is just ahead of it, the vagina, the motion passage is just behind it, so it's a very crucial area and we do not want to damage that area. So we give a small cut which you will not even feel in the contractions, and then we stitch it back once this is done. And on the 8th day we tend to remove those sutures. Generally they are absorbable sutures, but still we see that we remove them. And then once the baby is out, the placenta is out, and then you can immediately feed the baby. And the pediatrician is attending the baby at the time of delivery, so he ensures that the baby is fine, healthy. And then there are certain injections which we give the baby, and then we give the baby to you for feeding as early as possible. So once the baby delivery is out, generally what we do is we keep blood for you arranged in the blood bank, so that in case of emergency we can use. And generally it is not required, because so it's very important that you have iron, calcium properly, so that you ensure good hemoglobin level, because there is some amount of blood loss. In a normal delivery, around 500 ml is lost, and in the cesarean section around 500 to 800 ml blood loss is there, which generally you tend to cover up. And we also give you hematinic injections so that the replenishment of the lost iron is made up, and you tend to recover faster. So once this is done, then we generally encourage breastfeeding. So as soon as possible we ensure that your baby is given to you and you start feeding the baby. And we are a baby friendly hospital, so we do not encourage top feeding, but just in case of emergency we may have to do it for some reason. But then see that you breastfeed the child as soon as possible. Now for the breastfeeding also, we will try and arrange one class for you, so that we ensure that your baby is on the breastfeeding for the next coming 2 years. We recommend that you feed the baby for at least 2 years and exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months. After 6 months we must start with weaning. Okay, weaning is where you start giving external feeds. So generally you start with one feed at a time. Suppose you start with say rice porridge. So rice, congee kind of a thing can be given. Don't mix things up, don't make khichdi out of it. So once that is done, for a week's time you give rice porridge, then you give dal water, then you start giving mashed potatoes, then boiled banana, something like that. One food item at a time, so that if there is any intolerance, we know that there is some intolerance. Now once the baby delivers, there are certain tests on the baby. Okay, so to ensure that there is no metabolic problem. Some babies tend to not tolerate certain things. There are certain disorders in the baby which can be done, and we can ensure that the baby does not have thyroid issues or G6PD, biotin deficiency. There are certain common errors which you can always investigate. So the details of which you will get when you come to the hospital. We'll give you a pamphlet or so that you can go through it. That is called inborn errors of metabolism. We can screen those. So this is about it, and most of the things I think I've covered. So we ensure that your whole journey of carrying the baby right from the time of conception to the time of delivery is taking place, but it is a two-way traffic. We make our efforts, but you must also follow the said instructions, and we'll have a nice bundle of joy at the end of it. And happy motherhood and happy pregnancy, ongoing pregnancy, and take good care of yourself. The COVID times are challenging times, for which I've made this video. So please see that you follow all these things, and if you have any issues, any questions, any problems, please see that you sort those out. I'm free to talk to you anytime, and my assistants are there. The phones are on all the time, so please see that you come to the hospital in case of emergency. There's a bell outside. Please ring the bell so that my staff attends to the call, and I'm staying very close by, so I'll attend to you as soon as possible, and see that we sail through this whole journey together and successfully. Thank you. There are certain things where we need to intervene. Now, intervene by doing a cesarean section. Now, those indications are also important for you to know and ensure that you understand those well. So there are times where the baby just doesn't come down. Even after the date is over, the baby's head does not negotiate through the pelvic brim, that is the inlet. That is, suppose we have a glass and we have a ball sitting on it. Suppose there is a bigger ball and there is a smaller glass. Whatever you do, you press it, you try to negotiate the ball, it will not go in. So similarly is the case of the baby's head with the maternal pelvis. We have to ensure that it goes down. So we cannot push it, but one can assess these things clinically. And if suppose this happens and the baby's head does not negotiate, then we have to take action. So there are cases where the placenta is absolutely coming in the way of delivery. Now suppose there is an internal loss, the mouth of the uterus is closed, and suppose the placenta is sitting right on top of the cervix, then there is no way that the baby's head can negotiate down. So at such times we do an elective cesarean section where we have to intervene. If suppose there is a low-lying placenta, then the placenta has to be away from the internal loss. Suppose this is the internal loss and the placenta is sitting here, it should not be in the way, it should be away, at least 5 centimeters away from the os. So because the baby's head is around 10 centimeters, so that passage the placenta has to be clear of. So that we find out at the 28-week scan generally, and we also do it towards the end. Also, we ensure that the placenta is not coming in the way. If it is coming in the way, it's difficult to deliver vaginally. At times there are 3-4 cords around the neck, 2 and more. We give you an option. You can take a call, but 1 cord I generally don't see that you still deliver vaginally, but we have to ensure that we monitor you well. Now at times the baby's head is not the vertex in the normal vertex position. It may be a breech. Breech is when the legs are down and the head is up. In such cases, and especially if it is a first pregnancy, WHO recommendations are that we do not give trial and we do a cesarean section. Now suppose there is a transverse lie, that the baby is not in the vertex position and it is ADA or transverse, then the baby cannot be delivered vaginally, it has to be sectioned. Now there are certain positions, especially once we come in labor and then the baby's head is deflexed and all that, the baby's head is not completely, suppose I am the baby, I am supposed to sit with my head down like that. Suppose there is a deflection and the baby's head is straight, the diameters of engagement are bigger, so it does not come down, and in such cases there is normal delivery is not possible and baby doesn't come down. So these are some of them. And then if the pelvis, the girdle is very small and there are certain things protruding inside, there is ischial spine, there is in the pelvis, there are certain bones. There's a bone called innominate bone which has those spines. Suppose the spine is inside and it gets in the way of the baby's head, then we call this as cephalopelvic disproportion, and we need to intervene and do a cesarean section. So these are some of the things where we intervene. Suppose the fluid around the baby is extremely low. That is, we do the amniotic fluid index study, and we find out that the pockets are very small, less than 4 centimeters pocket, it's very low. Then the baby can go in distress at the time of labor. So we do CTGs, that this NSTs or CTGs we call, to find out if there is any fetal distress, if the baby is not doing well, oxygen is not getting into the baby, then we need to intervene. So this is how we monitor. Suppose when you come in labor, we generally tend to do a CTG every 2 hours, or if required even more frequently, to ensure that the baby is absolutely healthy inside and that the baby is getting enough amount of oxygen while it is in the process of labor, so that the brain does not get damaged, because it's very crucial. Monitoring the baby throughout labor is very, very crucial, and every 15 minutes we'll be monitoring the baby in active labor to ensure that the baby is absolutely not affected by hypoxia. Hypoxia is low oxygen level in the brain. So this is how we monitor. So don't worry, and see that you always communicate, and we are here to solve all your problems. And whenever the time comes, I will be intimating you as to how we take these decisions and why we need to take them, so that we ensure that you get a healthy baby. Thank you.